This is CBC Here and Now.
Are there people out there that we may not have detected who have COVID-19?
Searching for the spread.
Proactive testing is coming to parts of the province.
Heavy snow, ice pellets, freezing rain, even some rain in the forecast through tomorrow.
Well, this is Pancake Day, and once upon a time, Smitty's was known as Smitty's Pancake House.
Not every restaurant is doing well. Not every business has done well. They're putting basically community health and safety ahead of profit, and it's really good to see them stepping up and being involved in the community.
Well, those people aren't pulling up for a test.
Nope, some Mount Pearl restaurants are stepping up and feeding frontline workers.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan, live from our newsroom.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes in the Here and Now studio. We start tonight with an update on COVID cases in the province.
Yeah, there was no media briefing today. Instead, Public Health sent out the numbers in a statement. Let's take a look. There are now 7 new cases of COVID-19 in the province. 2 people are under the age of 20. The rest pretty much all over the map, ranging from people in their 20s to over 70. But it's important to point out here there are 25 new presumptive positive cases in the eastern region. Those are being treated the same as confirmed cases. Those people are self-isolating and close contacts are being told to quarantine. We'll be doing a little deeper dive on presumptive cases a little later in the show, but that brings our total number of active cases to 297. Here's how that shakes out across the province. The majority of the cases are in the eastern region. In fact, all but 8. There are a few in Western and Central Health, no cases in Labrador-Grenville Health. Some positive news since yesterday. There have been 6 new recoveries in the eastern region and another 2 on the west coast, although 1 person does remain in hospital. Something else of note, today's total 297, that doesn't include the 21 presumptive cases from yesterday or the presumptives from today. And they say the presumptive cases are still being examined, so they haven't been able to add those to the totals just yet. Meanwhile, a change for frontline workers with school-aged children. For the next 2 weeks, the Education Department will allow students to be in full-time daycare. With schools technically open, that's not something that was previously allowed. So earlier in the week, daycares were turning away essential workers looking for daytime childcare. They'll now be able to watch those kids, but only if they're existing clients. As announced yesterday, families won't lose their space or be charged for daycare if they keep their children home. Daycares are not expected to ensure children are taking part in online learning. If Alert Level 5 is extended beyond the 2-week circuit breaker, the province says it'll reevaluate those rules.
So with 297 active cases, we are now experiencing the worst outbreak in this province since the pandemic began. A Memorial University medical team is looking into the latest numbers. Dr. Proton Rahman is in charge of the province's COVID-19 modeling, and he spoke with the St. John's Morning Show about the new virus variant and what could happen next.
I think it's really important to be quite vigilant. So we're certainly trying to figure this out, but it's evolving quickly and it's still in progress. So what we've had really, when you actually look back, is just a series of unfortunate events, right? The first community outbreak in many, many months of virus in the community that ended up being a variant of concern, specifically the UK variant, multiple large gatherings over a short period of time. And the transmission that was primarily asymptomatic because it was in a younger age group. So what we saw was an explosion of cases. But what you're actually seeing now is transmission or secondary transmission to the parents. In other words, those in the ages of 40 to 50, to the grandparents. And the most recent data is showing that maybe there's a more 30% higher hospitalization rate and complication rate from this particular variant. So it's even more important than before to identify and, if at all possible, not catch the virus.
And the sudden outbreak of this new variant of the coronavirus has once again brought society in this province to a near standstill. But after some lessons learned, the City of St. John's says it's now able to maintain essential services much better than it did during last year's first lockdown. The key to that, PPE. Terry Roberts has that story.
We're in good shape. We have the proper equipment now for our staff to do that work. The mayor is once again doing interviews by video conference. He's become an old pro at it. It's experience from last year's lockdown that is helping the city through this latest disruption.
We have a business continuity plan that we're focused on maintaining the essential services.
Municipal parks are once again closed. Leave the skates at home. Recreation centers are locked down. But unlike last year, all essential services remain in place.
There was several services that we couldn't offer because we didn't have that equipment in supply. That's not an issue this time around, so it's meant that some of the services that we had to discontinue last year, we're still able to provide right now.
Here's the difference. No shortage of protective gear this time.
We didn't have the proper personal protective equipment to do work with sewage problems by entering the homes, so that wasn't able to be done, but we do now have that equipment, and so this time around we're still able to provide that service.
And unlike last year, new measures like bin spacing means citizens are still permitted to use the residential drop-off here at the landfill. The purchase of more laptops has also made it easier for city workers who can do so to work remotely. What's different this time is that some city workers are in isolation. 2 have tested positive for the virus, so recycling collection, a non-essential service, is temporarily suspended, and where necessary, workers are being redeployed.
One of the things that you may notice is that your garbage may be collected early in the morning instead of if it's usually collected later in the afternoon or vice versa. So, you should have your garbage out to the curb by 8 o'clock because we have to go through a fairly stringent sanitization of the trucks when there are shift changes and that with plows and snow clearing equipment. You may see a bit of a slower response in that area, but the response will be there, but the timing of it may be a bit different than we're used to seeing.
The mayor says some firefighters are also off the job, but he says it has not affected the department's ability to respond to emergencies. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, from St. John's to Labrador, calls are growing for extra COVID-19 precautions, this time from Labrador West. Both mayors in the region are asking for a 14-day quarantine for everyone traveling from the island. Here now's Garrett Berry reports.
We've never had a case here. Still amazes me. I don't know if it's divine intervention or whatever it is.
Mayor Ron Barron says they've had great success. And this latest request?
I want to keep it that way.
Last Thursday, the mayors of Wabush and Labrador City wrote to the provincial government asking for extra measures for Labrador.
All we're asking is if somebody comes to Labrador West, or even Labrador as a whole, that you isolate for 14 days. I don't think that's too much to ask for anybody coming into the area. And we're asking that of our residents, that if you happen to go to St. John's for essential purposes, because that's the only reason why you should be traveling now, is that upon return that you would isolate for 14 days.
He says he's not trying to ban or punish anyone. He's just trying to keep people safe. The mayors had a similar request last year when COVID-19 first hit the province. That time, it was denied.
One thing we've come to realize, there's only so much being, provided through the government. The thing is one thing we've learned in this community is we got to be self-sufficient.
The IOC mines are a huge driver of movement.
Labrador West, is fairly unique in the province. We are a net importer of workers.
To keep his members safe, he says the union and the company have gone much further.
Prior to gaining access to the work site, there has to be a negative screening for COVID. That's something above and beyond other workplaces have implemented. There's daily screenings of your temperature before you go in, weekly screenings of your just a questionnaire.
The mayors say they are just trying to match that standard.
What I'm looking at is doing it for everybody else who's not coming to IOC, because there's still people traveling to the region for other work besides the mining industry. So we still have other contracting companies that have people flying in, flying out, and there's work going on everywhere. This area is booming, not just the mining industries.
So far, they've got no response, but they're hopeful that this time they can work something out. Garrett Berry, CBC News, Happy Valley Goose Bay.
Messy mix of weather as we head through the next 24 hours. Area of low pressure already starting to spread some snow in through most of the island. That will continue as we head through the overnight tonight. And then if we take a look back towards maritime provinces, lots of wintry mix, some ice pellets, and even some freezing rain on the way. We do have freezing rain warnings from the Canaveral Peninsula through to the Avalon, then rainfall warnings for the southern portion of the Avalon. Winter storm warnings for Green Bay, White Bay through to Bonavista North, and then the rest of the island looking at snowfall warnings. Most of that snow will fall from the interior through to Bonavista North, 25 to 35 centimeters of snow. And then as you head further south and east, 5 to 10 centimeters, but then that's going to change over to some extended periods of freezing rain through the overnight. By morning, waking up to nearly 5 to 10 millimeters of freezing rain from the Canaveral Peninsula through to the Avalon. I'll break all of that down for you and have a timeline when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, now to some news from the courts. George Brake was denied bail this afternoon in a Corner Brook courtroom. Brake is accused of threatening to kill politicians in an incident late last month. Police say Brake led them on a high-speed chase. He was later caught with dozens of knives in his truck. The 66-year-old Bombay man will stay at the St. John City lockup for now. Judge Wayne Gorman says his release would put the community in danger. During his next court appearance Friday morning, Brake will have the opportunity to enter a plea. Well, the new plan for the ongoing provincial election is well underway. Voters are now registering for their mail-in ballot kits. But with mail-in ballots being the only option and the deadline approaching, some voters are wondering, will my vote count? Here Now's Mark Quinn has more.
Since COVID-19 nixed in-person voting, this has become the ballot box. It's the only way to have your say. But some people fear their vote won't get to Elections NL before the deadline.
Well, I hope my vote will count.
Ghislaine Millord got her ballot in the mail here at Churchill Square on February 5th. It went express post, so she's tracking it.
On February 6th, I received this information that the item had arrived at the destination facility for final sorting before delivery. And they say, look for out of delivery scan today or tomorrow to know when the delivery will happen. And still none of that has happened. It always shows that it's in transit.
Millord, who lives in St. John's and not far from the Elections NL headquarters, wonders what this will mean to voters who aren't so close, like those living farther away on the south coast of the island or in Labrador.
There's machinery at 98 Kemont Road that sorts 36,000 pieces of mail an hour.
Workers at Canada Post say they are up to the task. They do believe they can get all the ballots in before March 5th. The only possible spanner in the works is weather, and it is February.
We did experience, of course, with the weather that we had last week. Ferries weren't brought in, flights were delayed. We are working through, I was talking to an internal worker today, and there is a tremendous amount of mail in the building.
More than 214,000 people voted in the last provincial election in 2019. Elections NL says it's received 83,000 requests for special ballots so far. It says that for a special ballot to count, Elections NL must receive it on or before March 5th. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, in a statement to CBC, Canada Post says it is working with Elections NL to ensure the provincial election runs smoothly. It says Canada Post has extensive experience in securely delivering large national and regional mailings, and that last year the publicly funded Crown Corporation supported provincial elections in New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia.
Difficult times have a way of bringing out some of the best in people. In Mount Pearl, where we've seen massive drive-through testing sites, some local restaurants are stepping up to make sure healthcare workers are fed. Cease Hare has this story on a community's gratitude.
Delivering lunch and lifting spirits of frontline workers testing for the virus. Warm, comfort food on a chilly day in the middle of February for nurses taking swabs and support staff. On the menu, pancakes for Pancake Day. Donated by Smitty's, 150 meals in all, hot off the grill.
It's nice for us to be able to give back to the community that's given so much to us over the past 16 years.
Mount Pearl is at the center of Metro's coronavirus variant outbreak, but businesses are lining up to help. This is day 6 of curbside pickups and drop-offs.
First with Sobeys, and then Domino's and Island Sushi, or Sushi Island, and now today we've got Smitty's on Pancake Day providing lots of treats for everybody. Tim Hortons has stepped up in a big way, and I know the Frosty Festival Committee is stepping up this weekend to provide some meals. Mary Brown's is tomorrow. We've got Browning Harvey providing lunch on Thursday, and of course in true Newfoundland tradition we got Chessa's providing fish and chips on this coming Friday, and Sugar Mama's will be providing dessert.
Aker says the outbreak's impact in his city is widespread. 3 Mount Pearl schools are in the middle of it. 2 city workers have tested positive. 26 city staff are self-isolating at home. That's 10% of the city's workforce. He and councillors Isabel Fry and Bill Antle make up today's delivery crew, dropping off food at Mount Pearl Senior High and the new testing site at the Reed Centre. This response from a sector that's hurting, Aker says, is overwhelming.
Not every restaurant is doing well, not every business has done well, but those that have been involved in the community here in the past, whether it's through City Days or Frosty Festival, they're stepping up now in this time of need, and they're putting basically community health and safety ahead of profit, and it's really good to see them stepping up and being involved in the community.
Cease here, CBC News, Mount Pearl.
Oh, that's so nice. And Peter, now that we're facing a more contagious variant of the virus, some people are eager to boost their own safety measures.
Yeah, the idea of double masking is getting a lot of attention lately, but an infectious disease specialist says that's just one of the ways that you can up your mask game. Here's Dr. Lisa Barrett.
The masking part is not just sort of important, but imperative now that people go from a C or a D game in their mask wearing up to an A+ game. My name is Lisa Barrett. I am an infectious disease doctor and researcher at Dalhousie University in Halifax. The best thing you can do is distance plus a mask, because sometimes we put on our masks and we feel like we're completely protected. Not the case. The advice has always been wear a mask and keep distance wherever you can. And I am very comfortable giving people a little reminder, oh, I'm not backing away from you because I don't like you. I'm just going to keep my 6 feet really closer to 2 meters these days. And that's really important, particularly inside, even when masked. There's a lot of debate as to whether or not double masking is the key. So before we go any further and add in 2, 3, 4, 5 masks, none of them work unless they fit right. So that's number 1. Make the mask you use fit well. Just don't yell at each other if one person's wearing a double mask and one person's not. We need everyone to feel comfortable with their own personal level of protection.
So I have a medical type mask and I have my cloth mask. Which goes on first? Which goes over the other?
Right. So if you have a medical type mask, that one goes on first with the cloth one on the outside. Even making your first layer fit better is really important because you've got a gap, and it's the gap on the sides that is useful at letting particles in and out. What I do is I take the long version of my mask, I divide it in half. I'm going to put a little knot here, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And so if you can do this trick, knot right down by the side, tuck in the side so that there's nothing sticking out, make sure you affix with all 4 fingers, gently pressing it in tight, you have made this into a much better situation already. Even if you've just got a cloth mask, tucking the sides in and using one of the fasteners that goes behind your head is also an important way that you can make a cloth mask that's reusable and cheaper maybe for some people, better at the same time. So it's all about tight, and if you're gonna touch your mask, make sure you clean your hands after.
Good advice there. And Peter, fun fact here also, Dr. Lisa Barrett is also a Newfoundlander. She grew up in Old Perlican. Plus, she also trained under a very well-known infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Yeah, he's pretty well known as south of the border, longtime head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases in the U.S. and chief medical advisor to the president, so she doesn't have a bad resume there.
What is Black culture to you?
Black culture to me, what I think it's more of like the lifestyle of how Black people have lived in the past and how they are living now. Yeah. Fashion, the food we eat, the beauty, all the hairstyles, the arts, the culture.
It's Black History Month.
I had a conversation about culture and the Black community with two local photographers.
Time now for a look at the weather forecast. And Ashley, it was a nice day in St. John's today, but that's about to change, right?
It sure is. A little bit of a messy situation happening for parts of the Maritime provinces. That's headed our way as we head through the next couple of hours. But temperatures today, not too bad, into the minus single digits. That's going to set the stage for that snow as we head through the night tonight. -4 was the afternoon high in St. John's, and then we've got those temperatures cool up through Labrador, and it's going to stay cool as we head through the night tonight. Taking a look at the temperatures overnight, dipping into the -20s for most of Labrador, certainly for the north and the west, and as we head towards central and the coastal areas, you're looking at temperatures around -18, -19, but the wind will be fairly light out of the northwest, about 10 to 15 kilometers per hour. All the action will be for the island as we head through the overnight tonight. Temperatures, like I said, are going to start cool, -2 to -5 for southern areas of the island, and then temperatures into the mid-minus single digits as you head towards central and the northern peninsula into the -11-degree range for St. Anthony. Now those winds are going to ramp up as we head through the overnight tonight, and that's as our system moves in. So that's snow already spreading across the province as we speak. And as we head into the evening hours tonight, we're looking at things changing over to ice pellets, and into the early morning hours, eventually some freezing rain. Certainly for pretty much the Avalon through to the Canaveral Peninsula is where we'll see the majority of that freezing rain, or at least the most freezing rain. And then as we head into the early morning hours, 5, 6, 7 o'clock, we'll start to see that changeover right along southern areas, the Burin Peninsula, as well as the southern Avalon, back into rain. So this is what I'm thinking as far as how much freezing rain will fall. Again, Avalon, Burin Peninsula, as well as the Canaveral Peninsula, you can see anywhere from 5 to 10 millimeters of freezing rain falling after midnight through to the early morning hours. Extended periods of rain still expected from pretty much Port aux Basques through to the Bonavista Peninsula, and then north of that should stay as snow and ice pellets, and that's where most of the snow will fall, somewhere between 25 to 35 centimeters of snow. Widespread areas of between 10 to 20, but it looks like the southern areas as well as the Avalon, you're looking at somewhere between 5 to 10 centimeters of snow. Like I said, all the action mainly for the island, but southeastern portions of Labrador, you'll likely see somewhere between 5 to 10 centimeters falling through Wednesday afternoon. Your temperatures will be into the minus single digits as well. But note that those wild temperatures for eastern areas of the island. 7 degrees in St. John, 6 in Marystown. This will be the morning temperatures. We're going to see those single digit temperatures too along the south coast, but they will drop as we head through the afternoon, and everything that does fall will change back over to the potential for flurries. So this takes us through to tomorrow afternoon. Most of the snow will continue for central and western, tapering to flurries at times though, and then that's when we'll see that change over back to flurries into the afternoon for most of eastern Newfoundland, and eventually conditions will improve through the overnight. Now, not a whole lot happening for Labrador. Like I mentioned, just some flurries will move in late day for Lab West. Now, as far as those winds go, they are going to pick up tonight. Rec House wind warning in place right now. And as we head through the night, we're looking at gusts in excess of 90, probably 100 kilometers per hour for the Rec House area. And then the winds will start to ramp up for pretty much just along the south and any exposed areas in the east. So 60 to 70 kilometers per hour through the overnight. The winds will be the strongest tomorrow afternoon. The areas along the southern Avalon will likely see westerlies gusting upwards of 100 kilometers per hour as well. And then as we head into the afternoon and the overnight into Thursday morning, those winds will be brisk, somewhere between 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. So looking ahead into Thursday, once that low moves off, things will settle down, but it'll still be unsettled. We're looking at potential for some flurries pretty much across the board. Ridge of high pressure dominating for Labrador. So sunshine, just a few flurries expected in the west, but those temperatures will be back to around seasonal and minus single digits for the island. And then as we head into Friday, similar forecast, a little bit more sunshine in play though. And then plenty of sunshine for Labrador. Minus 17 will be the afternoon high in Nain. And then as we head into Saturday, the next weather maker moves in. Right now have some light snow for eastern areas, and that will continue into Sunday. We could see some accumulating snow depending on how far it reaches the Avalon, or at least how far north. We could see some of that snow make its way towards central, still keeping that potential for snow in there for Saturday and Sunday. And then for western Newfoundland, same thing. However, it looks like it'll be more of an onshore flurry activity into Sunday for you. For eastern Labrador, quiet through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Start to see that potential for some flurries, and it'll be quiet for Lab West as well. But temperatures will be into the minus teens. Speaking of Labrador, I wanted to share this great shot Todd took of the Northern Lights in Nain. Thank you for that. And if you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Well, we will return to our ongoing COVID coverage shortly, but first, February is Black History Month in Canada, and we're marking the month by highlighting the experiences of Black people in our province. Tonight, we introduce you to some local photographers for a conversation about community and culture, and as you'll notice, this was filmed before we went into Alert Level 5.
Hi, I'm Aoife Alaba, host of Being Black in NL. Today we're going to be chatting with photographers Munya and Kadai of Sky Nation. Throughout this month, we're going to be talking to people from the Black community in Newfoundland and Labrador. As I said, I'm your host Aoife Alaba, and this is Being Black in NL. How would you explain Sky Nation, what it is, what you guys do, how it became Sky Nation?
So Sky Nation is a photography and videography company. We started by taking portraits. Then as time went on, we kind of realized people were liking the creative culture which we kind of made, like sort of a trend of just trying to be creative and do different artwork. So from there, we just started by, connecting with different students, and we're here.
That's cool. Yeah. So why photography?
Like, he had this old Fujifilm camera, and I was like, no, look at this picture I took when I was back home. I'm like, shit, that look cool, That looks great. I was like, do you want to start like a page on Instagram? We'll just post random pictures?
Yeah.
And he bought his first camera like 2 months before I bought mine, and like used to take pictures. I'm like, wow, that's great. Like, I enjoy like what you're doing right now, and I just had to get my own,
That's really cool. Yeah. So obviously it's Black History Month, February. So I just want to ask, what is Black culture to you?
Black culture to me, what I think it's more of like the lifestyle of how Black people have lived in the past and how they are living now. Yeah. For example, fashion, the food we eat, the beauty, all the hairstyles, the arts, the culture.
I feel like Black culture is like the community that we all lived in based off the history of what happened in the past and what is going on now, like from the different people that represent, like the influential Black people that represent us to us, just like the small sub-communities in there and the lifestyles we live. I feel like that's what Black culture is.
How have you found the photography scene in St. John's, especially as Black people?
It has been easy connecting with Black people because, of course, I come from Zimbabwe, so understanding Black culture and, being able to express it in photography has been easy for me, by knowing fashion, the beauty, all of that, to implementing it to having makeup artists in the whole photography. That has been so easy to relate to Black culture and art.
I feel like the photography scene about Black culture in St. John was like a bit easy to penetrate because Black people have this sort of togetherness they do have, and it's easier for you to be like, hey guys, this is what I'm doing, do you guys like it? And they give you positive feedback, and if you're not doing well, they tell you, yo, like, hey, this is not it. This is not the one,
Not the one.
And like consistently getting that positive feedback just made it, grow as a person and like continue doing what you like.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here and for answering our questions. I had a great time getting to know who you are as Sky Nations.
Sky Nation,
Oh,
not
sorry.
nations.
Yes,
Just one Sky Nation.
Just one nation.
Just one nation, not
One
nations.
Thank you guys so much for watching. That's it from me, your host, Aoife Alaba. Look out for more Being Black in NL.
So far, the testing effort for the spike in COVID-19 cases has been focused on the Metro St. John's area, but starting tomorrow, there's a push to get people in Grand Falls, Windsor tested. Monica Dutt is the Medical Officer of Health for Central and Western Health. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So you're asking anyone who's either been to Metro in the last 2 weeks or who attends a number of local schools to get tested. Why is that?
So for this testing clinic, we're using a type of testing called an antigen test, which has been used in Eastern Health, and this is the first time we're using it in Central Health. They're called a pan-bio test. And the idea of this type of test and the way that we're using it is we're trying to just get a sense of, are there people out there that we may not have detected who have COVID-19? And in particular for this clinic, we are focusing on people who do not have symptoms. We still want people who have symptoms, who have other risk factors, to go through the usual method and get the test that is actually a more accurate test. But this test is quick and it's easy and it's fast, and it's a good way to get a snapshot if we test a large number of people at once, to try to get a sense again if there's anything that we might be able to pick up that we might be missing through other methods.
So why is Grand Falls, Windsor the focus of the testing here?
Primarily because we need to start somewhere. This is the first time we're doing this. We wanted to run the clinic. There's two goals to it. One is to go through this process, use the test, gather some information. And the second part is what I was saying, that we want to be able to see if possibly we are missing any people out there. You know, it's the learnings we have from this are definitely ones we'll be using in other parts of the region, but we are just starting with this particular area for this clinic.
So far, is there any evidence of this new variant in either Central or Western Health?
So far, and in the samples that we have in kind of since that beginning of February time where we've been detecting the variant in the other samples, we have not yet seen that. But part of this effort, as well as many other efforts, is to try to be, proactive, because we also want to try to get ahead of things and try to, catch anything that might be changing early, so that we can take action as early as we can and try to prevent it from becoming something bigger and seeing more people who are positive.
So if through this testing you find that there aren't cases that you guys have been missing, that there, right now you don't have spread throughout the community, will that then mean that you can lift restrictions for areas obviously outside of Metro?
No, because this testing, there's a higher chance that you might miss people who are positive. So if you were really thinking someone had COVID-19 because they had an exposure or they have symptoms, you really want to make sure that you test them with the PCR test that goes to St. John's, that gets processed there. So even if we didn't pick up anyone from this clinic, it's helpful. It gives us a sense that we might not be missing people, but it's not accurate enough to know that, really we don't have COVID-19 here. But that's why we still really want people who have the one symptom to be tested. And of course, anyone who's had a contact with someone who's positive, we want them to be tested. So we've got a whole bunch of different things that we're doing to try to make sure we catch people early. But this clinic on its own, even if everyone was negative, wouldn't be enough to say we don't have something in the area, but it would be really good information that we'll add in with all the other information we have.
Dr. Monica Dutt, thanks so much for joining us and sharing your insights.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, recent delays of COVID-19 vaccines have left many people here wondering when they can roll up their sleeve for a shot. The Prime Minister says this week Canada will receive its largest shipment yet. Hannah Thibodeau has more.
This week, we are on schedule to receive our single largest Pfizer vaccine shipment to date. And next week, we're expecting an even larger shipment from Pfizer again.
The ramp-up is expected to see more than 400,000 Pfizer vaccines arriving this week and nearly 500,000 the following. Canada has struggled with vaccine deliveries. So far, the largest weekly Pfizer shipment was just over 200,000. Canada's top doctor says even though there are more doses on the way, the more contagious variants have emerged in all 10 provinces.
We cannot afford to take the brakes off
We need to protect our progress and keep the runway clear for vaccine programs to expand and begin to work.
And to work, the provinces need mass vaccination plans to quickly get doses into arms. One of the big questions, how will people know when it's their turn?
That's a work in progress, and I'd love to be able to look you in the eye and tell you with a straight face right now exactly how, for example, an 80-year-old in the community can get access to vaccination, but that it hasn't yet been operationalized.
Other provinces are already preparing to expand vaccinations to people 80 and above.
Booking opened up this morning for the prototype immunization clinic. Those receiving an invitation to book an appointment are being selected randomly by their postal code, and these are the postal codes which are within an hour distance of the clinic site.
Even with the optimistic talk of a big shipment this week, this time a big snowfall in the U.S. is getting in the way of the delivery schedule. Pfizer says today's shipment will have to wait until tomorrow and hopes to have deliveries back on schedule for the rest of the week. As for the Moderna vaccine, another shipment is expected next week, and the government insists it will still deliver 2 million doses by the end of March. So far, we've received just over 515,000. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, it has been an alarming week with hundreds of new coronavirus cases. This is only our fourth full day in full lockdown, and news of the more contagious variant has everyone on high alert. All of these changes mean people have lots of questions. And Peter, you are one of the most familiar voices looking for answers at the daily medical briefing. So let's go through some of the questions that you've been hearing from people at home. And why don't we start with the vaccine? How effective are the vaccines against these virus variants?
Yeah, Carolyn, that's one of the key questions that people are wondering right now, especially people, one of the 2,000 or so that have received their full inoculations, the 2 doses. And this is some good news. So the strain that we're seeing right now is known as B117, which is the variant that was first detected in the UK. And both Pfizer and Moderna say their vaccine is effective against the new variant. So how do they know? Well, they've done some tests on the blood from people who've had the vaccine to see how it responds to the virus. But the clinical trials that were done on these viruses were done before these new variants were out circulating in the community. So they don't know for sure. There's going to need to be more research to know for 100%, but at least the good news is it is promising. Also promising is the fact that in long-term care homes in St. John's, all the residents who want one at least have the first dose of the vaccine, which means they're just a couple weeks away from developing that immunity. So a good sign as we're seeing these cases circulating in the community right now. But it is also a reason that we have these lockdown measures in place to keep visitors out because the fear that it could get in there.
For sure. And Peter, a lot of people are worried about how quickly this virus is spreading. We saw just an explosion of cases. Is there any indication that someone ignored quarantine rules or held a big gathering with too many people, something like that?
Oh, Carolyn, there have been plenty of rumors about that, but let's break down what we actually know about how this virus was introduced and it spread. So we've heard from Dr. Janice Fitzgerald that sports meets like hockey a week and a half ago, that was one of the main drivers of this. So were other sort of gatherings like parties. As long as those parties were under 20 people, they wouldn't have violated any of the special measures orders. Things like some sports tournaments were allowed. I asked Dr. Fitzgerald whether there's any indication that the rules were broken here, and here was her response.
Not at this point. Certainly we know that, very robust social lives were contributing to the spread, but that's the case everywhere. That's not any different than any other place across the country. So we're seeing the same things that they've seen. It's just this variant was so much more efficient at spreading, so that's why we're seeing what we're seeing right now.
One thing we don't know is how the virus got in here. Clearly it had to be through travel, but how was it able to spread if everyone is supposed to be doing a 14 days of isolation? Dr. Fitzgerald said that they just don't know right now. It may take them a while to piece this together, especially because that involves going back and looking at sort of backwards contact tracing. Right now they're kind of focused on the forward tracing because they want to contain the spread of this virus right now. That's the bigger priority, to make sure they're able to find and isolate these cases and get spread under control. Then they can spend a little more time, Carolyn, trying to focus on, how did it get here, and who was that sort of patient zero.
Right. And, we've been hearing a lot about presumptive positive cases, been some confusion with that. We saw 25 presumptive positive cases today, 21 yesterday. Can you explain how those cases are different from the regular positive cases?
Yeah, so this is basically just depends on how you're actually doing the test. So the tests for the presumptive cases come from the rapid tests. And we know that they aren't as sensitive as the regular PCR tests. Those are the ones that they do in the lab that we've been seeing those numbers every day. It has some benefits. So as the name suggests, it's fast. So you often can get your result within an hour. So if you're quickly trying to figure out if people have the disease or not, this can be useful rather than taking a couple of days for the lab to get back to you. But that usefulness comes at the cost of accuracy. So in St. John's, they are sending these samples to the lab as well. So we know we're able to get that result and say we've got these presumptive cases, but now it's going to take a day or two in order for the lab to actually confirm, are all of these cases positive? we have heard that they're basically treating them once someone tests positive, even on a presumptive case. They're still going to do the contact tracing. They're still going to isolate those people. So it lets them do that ahead of time rather than waiting for a couple of days for those results to get back. And we have heard so far that most of those presumptive cases, if not all of them, are turning into positives. But it seems that we have a bit of a backlog because over the last 2 days we've had 46 presumptive cases, which is more than the confirmed positive cases, and they're kind of in limbo. So, 7 cases today, we've got these 46 that may turn in and are likely going to turn in to confirmed cases, but until the test actually runs the numbers. And that's why it is important to not always be fixated on that exact number every day of how many confirmed cases did we have today, because you can see some jumping back and forth as just who you're testing and as the cases, the labs deal with the backlog of cases here.
All right, Peter, lots of great information there. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Welcome back. Well, Valentine's Day usually gives a much-needed boost to restaurants feeling the post-holiday pinch, but throw a pandemic into the mix, add a heightened alert level, and an already slow season is downright dismal.
Well, today on CBC Radio's Crosstalk, host Ramona Deering spoke with two St. John's restaurant owners about layoffs and gauging customer comfort.
We've laid off everybody at Mallard, so we laid off the whole crew, including me, and at our Water West location, I've laid off about roughly half, so about 75% of the total employees that I sign checks for every couple of weeks have received their ROEs, and until we understand
that's record of
what's going
employment.
forward. Yeah.
How many people is that have been laid off now, Todd?
30 something right now.
So we just did deli service, and we put some packages together and did some wine with some charcuterie boards and some combos, and we had oysters in house because we had brought in a bunch of oysters for the weekend. Like I said, we were considering doing the hot food takeout, but we didn't get a huge amount of interest from it. I think people were a little bit more hesitant to go out this time around to take out.
Obviously, it pales in comparison to what a normal weekend would be in the restaurant. Certainly Valentine's weekend. It's kind of the weekend that all restaurateurs in this part of the world look to get through the winter in a normal year, let alone one where we've been, the revenues have been cut so much as they have been in 2020, 2021.
Well, there is a growing market for anything that can help employees function in workplaces safely, and a Calgary tech company says it has a product that can do just that. Carolyn Dunn reports.
So it's vibrating because we're too close.
We're too close, saying. So these are set at 2 meters. So if we were to back up, then they would stop at the 2 meter point. Right there.
Which makes you think that 2 meters is much further than you think.
Absolutely.
That beeping sound is telling people they're too close to each other to be COVID safe. Zero Key is a wearable device that tracks the distance between people to an accuracy of about 1.5 millimeters.
Can you build some sort of system so that we can do contact tracing and we can let people know if they're closer than 2 meters? And we said, absolutely, we can do that.
Zero Key now has about 200 large clients using it to help maintain social distancing. And when there is a positive coronavirus test, contact tracing is instant.
You can do it automatically, basically, with a couple clicks and get a full list of people that should isolate. It allows you to really start to protect your staff.
Zero Key is now producing tens of thousands of units for its rapidly expanding demand. Similar systems are being used by other large companies too. Western Canadian-based agriculture giant Nutrien has 8,000 of its employees using similar warning and tracing technologies in its global operations, and is soon going to be adding thousands more.
As soon as we have a situation that's confirmed, we're able to immediately know who they've been in contact with and for how long. And being able to report real time on things like this really can prevent further outbreaks down the road.
And as for privacy concerns, both companies say the systems track contacts with other employees, but they don't monitor worker movement. Carolyn Dunn, CBC News, Calgary.
Well, Peter, we're definitely more than 2 meters apart with you up in the newsroom and me down here in the studio.
Yep, we don't need a device to tell us that.
For sure. Well, that's it for Here and Now tonight. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. We'll be looking likely another briefing for COVID-19 tomorrow, so we'll all keep an eye on those numbers, but have a great night.